This is a little bit different than what I normally do on my channel here, but I swear this is going to be a lot of fun, and you're going to enjoy this interview. With us, is Maria Menounos, and she is an Emmy-winning journalist with an impressive career in both hard news and entertainment news. But her daytime talk series, Better Together with Maria Menounos, is a true passion project born out of a health scare when in 2017, she and her mother were diagnosed with simultaneous brain tumors. I was a guest on her show, amongst other experts from different spaces like emotional and mental health, wellness, to even relationships and finance. So welcome, Maria.
Thank you so much. I had such a great time chatting with you on our show, so it's fun to get to do yours.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Your people, I guess, found me because I'm an NLP person. And while this is not really about NLP, NLP is not something you're unfamiliar with, right?
No, I am familiar with it, and are not like super familiar, obviously, but I wanted to know more about it, and I challenged them to find an expert in the field and the best of the best, and they found you. So that's our exposure to it. Outside of, I know Tony Robbins does a lot of it or has studied it and shares some of those teachings, but yeah, I just thought it was really interesting.
Now you're friends with Tony or acquaintances? What's the, and I know you've done talks for some of his, I guess, seminars.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a student and I've become a friend. He has, had an impact in my life through his seminars. I've made so many major changes in my life because of him, and interviewing him, getting to know him. And then, of course, speaking at his event most recently, his Unleash the Power Within event. So yeah, I hosted his birthday party with Dr. Oz in February. It was kind of like the last thing before we got put on lockdown. We raised, I think, like $19 million for Underground Railroad.
This is Life Mastery Gym, and so this doesn't have to be about NLP. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, is because you've had, well, first of all, quite an interesting life, quite a successful career. And tell me if I got this right, pretty much at the height of your career, suddenly you're diagnosed with a brain tumor.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I think, technically 6 months after my mom was diagnosed with her tumor. So my mom got a brain tumor in late August 2016. She had surgery in September 2016 for what we then found out was called glioblastoma, which is stage 4 brain cancer. And so I was working as a host of E! News at the time, and, took her care and became her quarterback and her, like, Tom Brady / Bill Belichick. And while I was working, and I was feeling a lot of pains, and I just shrugged them off, thinking that it was, headaches and different pains, because I was so stressed trying to balance everything and terrified of, my mom becoming one of the statistics and losing her. And so I just kind of shrugged everything off. And when you're a type A overperforming kind of person, when your body starts screaming at you, you usually are first to say, shush, I'm busy, I don't have time for you. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I did. And it wasn't until in the new year, I was getting this real strong pain in my ears that made me think I perhaps had an ear infection. So when you think you might have an infection, you do go to the doctor. And I went to a doctor. It was the first time I'd seen him, primary care physician. And I said, I have an ear infection. And he's like, no, your ears look great. He's like, what else are you feeling? And I started listing off the symptoms. I said, well, I've been getting these really bad headaches and getting dizzy. And, oh yeah, I've been slurring my speech on set too. I forgot about that one. And as I listed everything off, I said to him, oh my God, I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but I think I have a brain tumor like my mom. And he said, I don't think you're crazy, but I don't like what you're telling me symptoms wise. So let's just get an MRI and rule it out. And then what I proceeded to do from there, because soon after that, I think it was like a day after, we found out my mom's MRI came back bad. and her tumor was potentially growing. We thought it was growing at the time, and I had to prepare to take her to alternative treatments in Mexico, and so my focus went completely on her, and I kept postponing my MRI.
Mm.
And it wasn't until my assistant one night said, "Hey, your MRI is tonight." And I go, "Really?" And she said, "Yeah, at 8 o'clock." She's like, "I postponed it a million times." Or it was 10 o'clock p.m. I said, "Well, I got nothing going on a Friday night. Let's go get this MRI done." And that was the beginning of the journey.
Yeah. So what's that like? I mean, well, let me step back a little bit. When in your career, I mean, you were before the diagnosis, you were quite successful. I'm kind of curious about this. How satisfied with your career were you at the time?
Interesting you say that. So I feel like I was kind of going through the motions at that point. I think that it's easy to get trapped in a dream. And I think I kind of had gotten a little trapped and I was a little burnt out. Um, I was doing something I was really good at, but it wasn't challenging me anymore. And because I was really great at it, I could do it in my sleep and I could make a lot of money. It just kind of was just one of those things you just kept doing. And I think this was like a divine intervention to kind of lay me down, knock me out, and say, you need to rethink things. You need to rethink how you're attacking your life. You need to rethink your priorities and what you're doing, and make some changes for your like long-term health, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and all of that. And so it would not have happened if, God didn't throw a few bricks down in my head, kind of literally.
So for those people who might not be familiar with your career, let's talk a little bit about what you were doing. I
Mhm.
think the thing that stood out the most for me when I was looking over the jobs you held. Well, you won an Emmy, which
Mhm.
was that for E or
That was that extra.
what extra? Okay, and then you did some pro wrestling.
Mhm.
What's that like?
Yes.
That's an
So, Damon, I love trying everything. I'm somebody who just wants to do everything I can. I think life is so short that why wouldn't you try crazy things that you can get to do? So, I even created a series called Maria's Madcap Adventures at different shows where I could try my hand at anything and you could watch me either sink or swim, because I just love that moment where, am I going to make it? Am I going to do it? Oh, okay. I did it. Or, wow, I really sucked at that. And I think that's where living is done, is when you're challenging yourself. So wrestling, I grew up watching wrestling with my dad and we loved it. And so a couple years ago, they started having Monday Night Raw hosts. Monday Night Raw is one of their biggest shows. And they were having these guest hosts come in. And I remember telling my publicist, I need a guest host. I need a guest host. I'm the biggest wrestling fan ever. And one day they called him. He didn't end up calling them. They called him and they asked, and I said, okay, tell them I'll do it on one condition. I want to wrestle. And they didn't really take me seriously. So I kept asking for trainers. They don't have time to find me a trainer. So I found a trainer. I started training in his name. He just passed away recently. His name is Rick Drazen. Started training with him in the Valley in California in his backyard wrestling ring. And I showed up to my first match and I said, okay, I know how to wrestle. Here are my moves. And we went from there. And so I also, being such a fan, knew how to kind of continue the storyline. So I could have been one and done there, but I didn't want to be. So I kept using social media to egg the girls on and continue the fights. And so I ended up wrestling in 4 matches. I'm 4-0. WrestleMania, of course, being the biggest. So while I was doing Dancing with the Stars, I had shattered my feet. I had 7 stress fractures in my feet, busted my ribs, ripped the intercostal muscles. And I looked at my husband. I'm like, I can't go to WrestleMania like this. I'm like, I'm going to impale myself. This is horrible. And he looked at me. He's like, you will regret it for the rest of your life. You have to go. It was definitely a moment where I didn't think my husband really loved me. So anyway, I went and I wrestled. It was epic. It was the greatest moment of my life. 70 something thousand fans at Dolphin Stadium in Miami. And I'm really glad he made me do it, because it would have been one of my greatest regrets. You know, you can push through a lot of things, and I'm glad that was one I did.
I like what you said about trying everything, or trying, I
Mhm.
mean, obviously you can't try everything. So there has to be some sort of interest there. And that's what I recommend to a lot of people is like, pretend like you're a scientist and all those ideas you have in the back of your head, writing that novel, trying out improv or acting, just go
Yeah.
and try it. You know, like don't put the weight of the world or the weight of your whether or not you're a valuable human being on something like that. Just go out and try it. Where do you think that comes from? Was that something you always had, or is that something like as you were, I don't know, did some sort of incident happen or a mentor sort of challenge you, and then you go, okay, here's something that I want to, use in my life, is this idea of
Mhm.
really pushing myself with challenges and trying all these new things.
Well, I just had a thought pop into my head that I never realized before. But when I describe my parents, especially my dad, I always say my dad can do anything. If I called him right now and said, Dad, I need you to build me a spaceship so I can go to the moon and do an interview, he'd be like, okay, Maria, we gonna do? And he would figure it out, and we would go and it would work. Like, my dad is just, there are no boundaries for him. And so he was always, okay, can do. Everything was, figure outable. And so I'm sure that had an impact. I also had a tremendous fear of failure. So I remember growing up, I wanted to have a million backup plans. If this doesn't work, then I'm going to have this, then I'm going to have that, then I'm going to have this. And so maybe the culmination of all of that, along with my curiosity and my like real zest for life, like I really love experimenting, like going out and trying things and having fun. And I don't know, I think that's kind of, it's probably a combination of all of those things, because I just think life is so short. Why would we ever not try everything we can, or anything that's really like sparking inside of us? Like, just go do it. Like, use Nike and just use their tagline, just do it.
All right. Well, I want to come back to that in a moment, but I was curious, how did you become a regular on Howard Stern?
Okay, so I went on Howard Stern. This is funny. My husband kind of predicted it. We were living in a basement with like many people in our early struggling days. And we were listening to an interview with Carmen Electra at the time. And he's like, you're going to be on that show someday. And I was looking at him, and I was like 40 pounds heavier. I was this chubby college kid. I'm like, what is this guy talking about? And then of course, when I made it to my first appearance, it was probably like 2003 or something, 2004. I was in the green room, and I'm like, oh, and I called him, I go, honey, oh my God, you were right, I'm here. Holy moly, this is crazy. And so I remember at some point I went on to promote something. Maybe it was a book or something. And they caught wind of Kevin in the green room. Now, we never really were public with our relationship, and Kevin just kind of liked being behind the scenes. But they saw some things in the book, then they saw him, they put two and two together, and they brought him on. And Kevin's like the ultimate Stern fan, and he's a writer, and he's funny. And so he came on, and yeah, I thought that was the end of our lives and our end of our relationship, because he was a little too open and loose with his lips. And so I remember walking in the streets of New York after and being like, oh my God, my life is over. And these women were coming up to me like, oh my God, I love you so much more now. And I go, you do? And they're like, yes. And so from there, Howard was really obsessed with Kevin. So anytime I went on, it would be me and Kevin. Then they got my dad on. My dad, who was so against all of it and had been angry we were even doing it, then he got in and he was loose-lipped and crazy. And we just became friends with him and Beth over time. And so he engaged, he proposed to me on the show.
That's what I was
And
going to get to. I wanted to ask you about that as well. And what the interesting thing when I watched that video was he seemed more emotional than you.
because it caught me off guard. I was so shocked. I mean, we'd been together for, a zillion years. And I was so confused, because when I looked, when the box opened, it looked like a joke. Like, it didn't look like, something was shining, and I was so confused. And I was like thinking, oh my God, all of America is going to hate him. He's like making this a joke. And so I had so many things going through my head because I just didn't expect it. And so once I started kind of getting my head together, and it took like all day for it to kind of settle in and be like, oh, that just happened. Like, we're engaged. I remember I was doing IVF at the time. I was a little kooky, and I had to like rush into the bathroom after and inject myself with all these hormones to make eggs. And so it was a little kooky of a time, but yeah, it was funny,
Interesting.
but it's real.
Yeah. Now, at what point was your diagnosis for the brain tumor? Was that before or after his proposal?
It was after.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I think it was 2016 that we got engaged because, oh no, yeah, it was 2016 because it was before my mom had just gotten diagnosed. We were on the book tour. That's what it was. We were on book tour, and yeah.
now you talk about life being short, and it sounds like that was kind of a part of your philosophy before the diagnosis. And so what was it like after the diagnosis? I mean, it must have felt like another constraint was put on this idea of life being short. Somebody, a doctor's now telling you you have a brain tumor, it's conclusive. What 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 runs through your head at that point?
Well, I think when he told me, I laughed. I mean, when I found out, I kind of was like, oh shit. And then I literally started laughing because it just seemed so insane to me that we both would have brain tumors. And when I asked Dr. Black, I go, is this like something that happens all the time? And he looked at me deadpan. He goes, nope. And I was like, okay. So he was pretty sure that it was benign when he was looking at it. He's like, I've been fooled before. We won't know until we operate. He goes, but I'm pretty sure it's benign. And, so for me, I kind of believed from go that it was benign and I was going to be fine. Um, and I just started preparing for anything. I think I was very focused on keeping my mom alive at the same time, and I had to keep it a secret from everybody. So it wasn't really until just before surgery that I really started kind of feeling it. And so I remember writing letters to everyone that I had my best friend give out while I was under anesthesia. And the letter to my dad was my most important because he's like a very proud Greek, from the old country. And I just said, I'm going to change my life after this. And I'm going to do things really differently. And you might not have things to brag about to your friends at church or tell them I'm doing this or I'm doing that. I'm going to do the things that really, really make me happy and make me feel safe health-wise and all of that. And, I hope you're okay with that and you'll still be proud and still love me. And it was pretty emotional. And yeah, it was definitely the impetus for a major life change for sure.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. And I'm sure your dad, the outcome of that is your dad is still very proud and loves you and all those things. Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't believe it in the moment. You're scared. You're like, ugh.
So how did this change your life? How are you different now? What do you do differently now?
So I think it's been a little over 3 years now. I really slowed everything down for a long time. Recovery took a while. My balance was off. It was a little hairy for a minute there. But I slowed my life down. I really started listening to my body and honoring its feelings, tired, sick, or intuition wise, really going with what felt resonant, and anything that felt dissonant, I said no to. Whereas sometimes you're guided by other things, whether it's opportunity, if it's a good opportunity, or if it's, a lot of money or whatever, you might be shifting without knowing what your inner guidance is kind of telling you to do or not to do. So I really tried to listen and try to lay a foundation for the rest of my life to kind of maintain this. Like, maintaining the changes was the thing that was most important to me, because I know a lot of people go through these life-changing moments and then they go back into their old ways, and I didn't want to do that because I had now experienced something that not a lot of people get to experience, which is, my brain surgery, my mom's brain surgery. It's a little intense. And so I am very focused on my health in every way, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and I am, you know, doing the things that make me really happy and that I'm really feeling, good about. And that's it.
So a lot of people are going through big challenges this year because of the pandemic and how it's affected the economy. And so, I mean, it's such a range of hardships that people are dealing with now and experiencing big challenges. From what you've learned of having this rather extraordinary career, going through this health scare, and then for some people, they might look at you and say, "Wow, you really walked away from a lot. You walked away from, a lot of these things that you were doing before, but you did it because you wanted to be happier, and you, I guess, realizing even more so than ever that life is short." What do you tell people now who are going through challenges, who are going through hardships, after what you've experienced and what you've learned from it?
Yeah, I think, nobody wants to go through pain. No one wants to go through hardship. No one wants to go through tough times. We want to avoid that as much as possible. But the only silver lining to it is that through pain comes growth. And so you do have that to look forward to, and you have choices in how you're going to handle everything. And so you want to look at things like, how would I want the story to be told? And that will usually guide you to better decisions and better choices that will also lift you through those dark times. And I think that that is how I've kind of lived my life for the most part. And and I think that that's kind of the best approach, because you can just let it sink you, or you can find ways to navigate it better. And that's why I started Better Together, my show, because I wanted to help people through these tough times, whether it's health crises, financial crises, life crises. I know I've gone through a lot of them, not just with the brain tumor, but so many other things. And I feel like having the access that I've been afforded in my career to the greatest minds and the greatest experts is my opportunity to be able to help everyone, myself, my team, all of us included, because it's hard to get better on your own. It's easier to do it with people. And so that's why we called it Better Together. My life has always had a purpose to help people, whether it was through my books or anything that I was doing, whether it was a story for nightly news. I wanted to foster more understanding, or I wanted to give people more information. I've always liked helping people. And so I get to do that every day now. And so it really feeds my soul so much. But I think when you're going through tough times, you have to think, what am I feeding myself in this time? Right? What am I feeding my mind and my psyche in this time of tough times? It's easy to continue to drown yourself in the negative, watching the news and, being around people who are negative, who are going to rub your shoulders and say, I know it really sucks. But you've got to actually really push out of that and think, how can I feed myself more things that are going to lift me and help me through this time? How can I find people that can support me? And how can I speak better to myself through these tough times, and know that there's some people believe in there's a reason everything happens, but no matter what, it's setting you up for choices that you can make to come out the other end. And so, I think that's the only way to kind of look at it.
I'm just thinking about how I could do a total NLP breakdown on everything that you're saying, because it really fits well with NLP models for success. Like it's that kind of mindset. I want to talk about your show some more, and we will link it in the description underneath this video, or rather the channel to your show. But I want to go back to what you said about the story. I thought that was interesting because immediately I thought values, because I really push values a lot, and
Mhm.
personal values as to being the guide. And when you said story, I was like, wow, that's a great way to bring together your values. And I was just curious for you, when you think of that, when you think, well, how do I want this story to be told? And I guess you're kind of giving yourself a moment. In NLP, what we do is what we call perceptual positions. You kind of go in third position, where you step outside of yourself and you observe it sort of from a neutral place and say, okay, well, how do I see this story from outside of myself? And I was curious about how much of that focus do you put on, you know, what you personally want that story to be versus what other people might think of your story?
Ooh, I don't know if I've thought about it like that. I just have thought about it in terms of, it's like you can be the hero of your own story, I guess, right? And so I would rather tell the story that I didn't succumb to all of it, and that I found a way to cope and I found a way to heal, and that I'm able to share it with other people who need it and who can find relatability in the story, who can find connection in the story, who you know, um, can move through their journey with yours. I think that's important for me. I don't know if I've thought about it as specifically as that. Um, I'm not thinking like, oh, what would this journalist say or what would this person write? But for me, it's kind of like, what would I want to write? I would want to write that like I bucked up, like I did it. I had some moments. I lost my shit here and there. I cried on my husband's chest, but I picked myself up and I did surround myself with great people. And when I didn't have great people, I found ways to avoid or part ways with people, and bring in more sunshine and more positive. And I had this expert Trevor Moawad on the other day who talks about, going to positive is really hard for people, but going to neutral is a lot easier. So focusing on the things you won't do anymore. I won't watch the news or I won't eat unhealthy is a little bit easier than saying, I'm going to eat healthy and so I really try to focus as well on, what I can cut from my life that does not bring me good energy or good things so that, I'm living in a better space and a better state every day.
I'm really liking what you're saying because again, I'm just hearing the NLP patterns. So for people watching who are NLPers, which most people who watch this channel are, she puts the locus of control as a meta program within herself, which I think is which has contributed a lot to your success. You're more focused on what is it that I need for my fulfillment. And at the same time, you're doing something that we found over and over again, as far as on an identity level, what makes a very healthy self-concept is someone who is not building themselves up to feel superior to other people, but building themselves up so that they can connect better with other people, which came through in what you were just saying.
Wow, that's so cool. I love the cross-examination. This is so great. Well, because it's hard to, I would think that I worry about what other people think, and that maybe there would have been a different answer for that because I grew up with my dad always saying, what are the people going to say, Maria? But it really isn't, it hasn't been my real focus, even though I did live that life of having to worry about that, but I have made a lot of changes in these last couple of years. So it's kind of cool to see it manifest in this moment right now where you're hearing it all.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you didn't do it differently before. We can
Mm-hmm.
always make these changes, and that's part of what NLP is being able to recognize what's happening. Recognize these patterns, and then say, okay, if I can recognize these, then I have a choice now. I can make a
Mm-hmm.
change them. Let's talk about your show a little bit. When did you start doing it?
Well, it was a once a week podcast for a while, but I had a vision and my husband had a vision to do more with it. But I wasn't really ready. It took, there was a lot of healing that had to go on, not just from the tumor. And so when COVID hit, it kind of became this moment where I realized I need to be with everybody. And I decided to go every day with everyone because I felt like we needed that community. I needed it. I needed to be away from the news in those moments. And I knew we were going to kind of need a safe place. And so I launched it every day and it became our daily show experience in COVID. And I thought COVID, okay, maybe it'll be like 2 weeks. I'll do every day for 2 weeks. And here we are in November. So I really believe in the universe kind of guidance. I know that everything kind of comes as it's supposed to if you just trust and you allow and you surrender to it. That was a big thing I've learned in the last 3 years. And so when that came, I listened and I went with it. And I think that that was the push in the moment for me to say, okay, time to step back in and do what you're supposed to do. And I think that all of these things brought me to this place where I'm doing what I'm meant to do, and what my kind of soul's purpose is to do here is to help people. And that's what I get to do every day.
Yeah, yeah, that's when you feel that purpose and that meaning, that's when you know you're in the right place. I think that's wonderful. What would you say is your overall message on your show?
I think the overall message is that when you know better, you can get better. And so every day we're trying to know better to get better. And whether it's for our health, for the world, for our families, we can always get better, and we can always improve, and we can always grow. And when you're not growing, you're dying. You've heard the cliched line at this point. So for me, I've always had a thirst for knowledge and a curiosity, which made me great at what I did and what I do. So I love learning, and I wanted to go on this healing journey, and it helps me because I'm right there with everybody. I don't have all the answers. I've had a really interesting life, and I've got a lot of experiences, and I have a lot I can share too. But then bringing in all of these amazing people helps us all along the way. And I feel like uh, it's just been a really powerful thing to see people's lives changing. And when people are responding and they're saying, this has changed my life, or this saved my life, because I remember just down the street, I went to a little cafe, and the girl stopped me who owned the restaurant. And she said, your show saved my life. And my head just kind of spun, and I was like, what? And she had listened to an interview with the medical medium, and she had severe ulcerative colitis. And she's in her 30s. She has, 3 little kids, and they said that they were going to have to operate. She was going to have a colostomy bag for the rest of her life. It was this horrible nightmare. And she listened to the interview, and she tried celery juice that he, speaks about every single day. And she completely healed herself, to her doctor's bewilderment. I mean, this is like a real life person telling you this. This wasn't like, it was unbelievable. And so her story and so many other stories give me so much like excitement and life and fulfillment, because I know that I'm able to use, I'm able to use my gifts and my life experience to help people in their tough times. Because like I said, none of us want to go through it, but we have to. It's life. No one's going to have an easy way. I don't know one person who has it easy, and you can't look at somebody and say, oh, they're rich. They have it too. Everybody has it. So I really like being able to bridge those worlds for people and help them, because it's lonely and it's hard and it's scary and it's tough. And the medical community is so challenging because they look at things through one lens. And I really believe that one of the reasons this all happened to my mom and I is because being a reporter and being such an investigator, I really had to search for ways to optimize her. And so, with cancer, for example, your body's being ravaged by this disease. Then you're adding all these toxins to kill everything. And then you wonder why everybody gets so weak. So for me, it was so important to optimize her immune system and get her so strong so she could handle all of that. And, whether it was that or just God's will, 4+ years later, we're still here with something that takes people in 6 to 12 months normally. So I feel like, there's so many challenges out there for the everyday person, and the everyday person doesn't have access to the people that I have access to. And that's why I love doing what I get to do, because I get to bring them to you and I get to give you access to them. Like last night, we did this really cool workshop with our Patreon members with Patty Penn, who's this Reiki master and this healer. And we did this tapping, and people don't have the money to have a tapping session with Patty Penn. That just doesn't happen. But yet, for a small donation in our Patreon, they get to be a part of a session with her one-on-one and ask her questions and do the therapy with her, and then see, oh, maybe this is something I will invest in. Maybe this is something that was helpful to me tonight, and maybe I can ask for it, for Christmas, and have all my friends pitch in, and I can go, do another session or whatever. but just getting the exposure to opening your mind to different modalities and different ways of thinking, different perspectives from all of these different people in all the different areas, not just in health, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, I got to say, I'm happy that your voice is out there. You know, I didn't know, I didn't know you very well. I didn't know all of this that you're telling me. So it just makes me feel happy that, yeah, you're taking what you've gone through and you're putting it out there, and then the access, like you said, to the resources that you have and sharing that with as many people as possible. I think that's wonderful. And what your story also exemplifies is something that I try to coach people and tell people about, which is, you know, either people are often caught up in, I have to make money, be successful because of what people might think of me, or I might have to do what my society culture demands of me and not what personally fulfills me. And I say, no, you got to do what personally fulfills you, and you will be better for all of those other people. And you're
Mm-hmm.
a shining example of that. You're following your heart. You're doing what fulfills you, what's meaningful to you, and you're much better for other people. But if you had tried to please other people or be successful because of what other people think, you wouldn't be
Yeah.
sharing what you're sharing right now. So I think that's amazing. I
Thanks.
know we're kind of short on time right now, so I just kind of want to rattle off a few questions here. I think
Okay.
I know why, but I'm not certain why. What's up with all the lemons on your?
Ah! You know what's really funny is I think you believe it's because I'm using the Make Lemonade.
That's what I thought, but I was like, maybe it's not so obvious, so I don't want to be.
No, and it wasn't. It wasn't that. First of all, I have a lemon grove at my house. Basically, I have all these lemon trees, and I just love them. They bring me so much joy. I love lemons. And so when I got married in Greece, when we were thinking of the decor for the tables, I was just throwing like a party in the village. I wanted to get married in the village my dad came from in Akavos, Greece, this teeny little village. And I just said to my friend who was helping me put it together, I said, well, just put some lemons on the table. Well, that turned into this like amazing florist in Greece who got on board and just made these amazing lemon like trees and things and stuff like that on the tables. It was gorgeous. Um, and and with the show, what was funny was it was just kind of the first thing I went to. I was like, oh, I just love the freshness of it. And later, you know, obviously like you know that people say that, but it wasn't for that reason.
Yeah, I just had a feeling. I was like, well, I don't want to assume, and so
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad
But
I.
the message makes sense. It
Sure,
does make
sure,
sense. So it works, but that was never my intent behind it.
yeah.
So
What are you most satisfied with in your life right now?
I mean, I feel like just the fact that we're all healthy and alive. Whew, thank you, God. Every year that we make it to the holidays is like a major benchmark for me. I just pray every year. I'm like, please God, can we just make it? Can we just make it? And so, um, yeah, just
Well,
to
I mean, that says is, I mean, you kind of just walk around with this tremendous amount of gratitude all the time. It sounds like.
yeah, I do. I do my grateful list every night before I go to bed, down to like every teeny moment that went on. Because it's funny, if you don't do it, you end up focusing on more of the negative.
Mhm.
And when I do it, I realize, oh my God, I forgot a major thing that happened today that was huge. How could I forget that? And at that point, I'm berating myself a little bit, which is bad because I'm like, how could you forget that that huge thing just happened? So it's a really great accountability to do your grateful list. But yeah, I mean, my parents have been my like, I feel like my life's mission was to give them the life that they never had. And I got to do that with the success of my career, make them proud, obviously, and now keep them alive as long as I can.
Mm. Yeah, my mentor used to say gratitude was the one thing you could not have too much of, and gratitude, if you were grateful to someone for something, that also it was good for the person who was feeling the gratitude, but also good for the receiver as well. So just all around, there's like just nothing but good comes from gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
One last question. I have done interviews in the past with people, and I always ask them this last question, and because I enjoy the different reactions and responses I get from it. That is there anything that, because you've done probably hundreds, if not thousands, of interviews, is there anything that people never ask you about that you would like to be asked about? I may have stumped you. It's okay.
Yeah, pretty
There might not
stumped.
be anything. It might, because you've done so many interviews, maybe people ask you about all that. But like, I'll get, answers like, well, yeah, my garden. Nobody asked me about my garden, or something like that.
Yeah. That's so funny. It's hard to know because I feel like now with social media, I'm interviewing myself all day long with TikTok and Instagram stories. So I'm resuscitating like lizards from my pool and doing it on Instagram and, finding animals all over the property. So whatever it is, I feel like I'm documenting so much. I'm a documenter, not just on social media, just on my phone. I document everything. So yeah, no, I can't think of anything.
Okay. And I lied. One more question. What's next for you?
What's next? Well, right now, as I said, I'm prepping my mom's bedroom here. So I'm excited for my parents to make it back out here to Connecticut and enjoy the holidays with them and continue to build our Better Together Heal Squad. We call them our Heal Squad, our community, and build that show and get more and more people to come join our posse and learn and grow right alongside us.
Wonderful. All right. I know you got another engagement like right now. We did run a little bit.
What time is it?
It's would be 4 or 5 years.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. I had so much fun on your show. I started to warm up towards the end. I always say that. Oh, I was just warming up towards the end, and then that's when it ends. But I'd love to do it again if you have me back. And
would love that.
Love to have you back here as well. This was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
And we'll see you back on Better Together soon.
Yeah, please do.
I'll let Jeff know too.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the holidays.
Same to you.